Hi. Did you know that there's something called a quadricopter? It's basically a remote control drone that plays audio of women and children crying to lure people into the line of fire so that they can be picked off. Are we okay? I learned this horrible fact in an issue of the new Internationalist that was released earlier this year, all about the global weapons trade. And in it, they also address the continuous flow of weapons into Sudan over the last 2 or so years of war. Now, I recommend you read the entire issue because it is fascinating and terrifying. But the portion about Sudan is written by an amazing Sudanese journalist by the name of Iyad Hisham. And in his article, he talks about who's bringing in the weapons, where they're coming from, and how they're coming into the country. It is no secret that Sudan has been under various arms embargoes for decades at this point, dating all the way back to 1994. But unfortunately, they've done very little to impede the flow of weapons into the country. So much so, in fact, that I read an article from 2014 that called Sudan Africa's arms dump. After 950 something days of war and at least 2 yearly renewed embargoes later, weapons are still flowing into Sudan from all of these countries. What I also learned in this issue of the New Internationalist is that weapons companies are quite lax when it comes to following up on where their products end up. There's usually a third-party clause in most contracts that states that countries or entities buying from the manufacturer are not allowed to sell or give these weapons to third parties, and especially sanctioned and embargoed countries like Sudan. But nobody cares, and the countries or entities that are buying the weapons themselves are not very honest about where they're going. So what does this mean for Sudan? Well, in a nutshell, it means that as long as weapons are flowing in freely, the war will continue. And we've reached a point where even non-military grade weapons, like guns for hunting, for example, are now being modified and used in the fighting in Sudan. All of this is so concerning for so many reasons, not insignificant of which being the propagation and promotion of gun violence in everyday society. So what do we do? Well, in the meantime, over the last 2 years, activists across the world have been campaigning and protesting in different ways to curb the influence of the arms industry. And when it comes to Sudan, demanding a nationwide arms embargo on the country. And it shouldn't just be the activists. We should all be concerned because nothing happens in a vacuum. And all of these seemingly giant issues that are so far removed from us, the little people, eventually trickle down to have a lasting and indelible impact on our daily lives.